Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. In the Northwest Territories, a woman who defrauded a Fort Smith company was sentenced today. As Natalie Pressman reports, she took tens of thousands of dollars from a Fort Smith construction company in a crime her lawyer says was fueled by addiction.
Doreen Elizabeth Vogt will spend 2 years less a day serving a conditional sentence, sometimes called house arrest, at her home in Fort Fitzgerald. NWT Supreme Court Justice Sheila McPherson sentenced Vogt in a Yellowknife courtroom. She imposed a sentence recommended by both the prosecution and defense lawyers. Vogt pleaded guilty in October to defrauding a Fort Smith construction company while working as the company's bookkeeper. She made over 100 fraudulent money transfers from January to October 2019, costing the company over $150,000. Some of the e-transfers and fraudulent checks Vogt sent were to herself. Some were to her common-law partner or to acquaintances. She continued to do so until the owner of the company, also her uncle, discovered her fraud and fired her. Defense lawyer Gary Smith told the court that Vogt's crimes were fueled by addiction. Vogt has a chronic lung condition and a type of arthritis that impacts skin and joints. Smith said she became addicted to prescribed painkillers and later cocaine. Vogt is also the mother of 3. She's often the sole caretaker for the 2 teenagers. The Crown prosecutor and defense lawyers agreed that a conditional sentence in the community would allow Vogt to continue to care for her children. It also allows her to make payments to the company. In addition to her sentence, Vogt will pay a fine of about $32,000. That's the amount that she paid to herself with the company's money. She'll pay it in installments of $150 a month. The lawyers said that Vogt isn't being asked to pay the full amount stolen from the company because it wouldn't be realistic for her to find the money. Vogt will also be prohibited from serving in a role where she has access to bank accounts or property for the next 3 years. Natalie Pressman, CBC News, Yellowknife.
The response to a Yukon mine failure needs more money, tens of millions more. That's according to the latest report from the firm managing Victoria Gold's Eagle mine site. Jackie Hong has the story.
PricewaterhouseCoopers is requesting an additional $55 million. It says that money is needed to continue environmental protection and monitoring work. That money would come out of the security posted by mine owner Victoria Gold. PricewaterhouseCoopers has been in charge of the mine since August. That was after the territorial government had Victoria Gold placed into receivership. The move followed a heap leach failure in June. An estimated 4 million tons of ore slid off the heap. The ore was being treated with a cyanide solution, about half of it spilled into the surrounding environment. PricewaterhouseCoopers says it's done extensive work on site. That includes drilling groundwater monitoring wells. It's also built a safety berm and a second camp for workers. But more still needs to be done. Storage space for contaminated water remains an issue. So does modifying the water treatment plant so it can properly treat cyanide. Teams are also now assessing the stability of the heap leach itself. PricewaterhouseCoopers says it's unclear if the mine will ever be able to reopen. The requested increase would bring the total cost of the receivership to $105 million. The increase still needs to be approved by a judge at a court hearing later this month. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
People in 7 NWT communities will be paying around 5% more on their next power bill. Last week, the Public Utilities Board approved NTPC's request to increase rates in the Snare and Tolson zones. Betchacon, Detta, Hay River, Fort Smith, Fort Resolution, Enterprise, and the Kotlo-Deche First Nation are all included. The increase took effect on Sunday. Yellowknife is also in the Snare zone, but the city gets power from Naka Power. Other communities are not seeing a rate increase at this time. That's because they're in the thermal zone and were subject to a different rate increase this past summer. That increase was 12.7%. Both recent increases are part of NTPC's efforts to increase power rates by an average of 25% across the NWT. Electric vehicles and electric heating are expected to put a strain on northern power grids. A new study out of Yukon University offers utilities some ways to fix that. The CBC's Leni Lambrink explains.
This is Yellowknife's School Draw neighborhood. Researchers modeled all of the power infrastructure here, and then they ran different scenarios. They found that if more people install electric vehicle chargers at home or start using electric heat, it's going to put a strain on the grid, especially for transformers like this one, and that's going to cause a whole host of problems.
Transformers could get overloaded and overheated, in which case transformers could malfunction and there could cause damage on the electric power infrastructure itself.
The study looks at other parts of Yellowknife, Whitehorse, and Dawson City, too. For example, if half the people living in Whitehorse's Dakini neighborhood installed EV chargers and a third had electric heat, more than half of the hydro poles wouldn't have enough voltage. ATCO Electric owns utilities in both territories. It isn't surprised by the report's findings.
We appreciate Dr. Ross and his team doing the study. Really, for us, wasn't as many surprises in there as we really knew this was just putting a heavy load on the system. It really helps us look at planning and have these bigger conversations about collaboration with government and incentivizing at the right time for electric vehicles or not.
The NWT and Yukon governments are incentivizing electric vehicles already. Both are offering people rebates for EVs and level 2 chargers. And Ross's study also offers some solutions, options that aren't just expensive infrastructure upgrades. One solution is to adjust the cost of electricity so that it's cheaper when there's less demand.
Here's when everybody's charging. That is going to cost a premium because our infrastructure can't handle it, versus it's cheaper to charge overnight. So that way people could schedule their electric vehicle charging accordingly.
Ross says right now the NWT and Yukon power grids aren't facing this kind of stress from electric vehicles and electric heat. But as governments turn toward greener sources of energy, that stress could come. Ross says his work is just scratching the surface when it comes to solutions. Lainey Lambrink, CBC News, Yellowknife.
The family of a man killed by Nunavut police during an altercation in early November is speaking out. His twin brother was also seriously injured during the incident. Joshua and Garnet Papigatuk have family in Montreal. They organized a march on Saturday, and the CBC's Paula Diane Perez was there.
Protesters gathered in Westmount in solidarity with the family of Joshua and Garnet Papigatuk.
Justice for twins!
Both Joshua and Garnet are very loved, very happy people who had so much to give to the world. And to end a life just like that with so much potential and so much happiness is really sick.
26-year-old Joshua Papigatuk was killed in a police shooting in Saint-Louis, Quebec on November 4th. His twin brother, Garnet Papigatuk, was seriously injured. The incident is being investigated by Quebec's police watchdog and the Sûreté du Québec. Early BEI reports suggest the police responded to a call about someone attempting to drive while impaired. A physical altercation ensued, with tasers and pepper spray allegedly deployed before police used their guns. But one witness CBC News spoke to in the aftermath said they saw the whole incident unfold and that they didn't see any pepper spray or tasers used. Since then, community members held demonstrations and vigils across Nunavut.
Montreal has a huge Innu population, why not do it here too?
The family didn't stand alone. The mother of Chantel Moore, who was shot during a police wellness check in 2020 in New Brunswick, made the trip. Her son also died that year in BC while in police custody.
I still don't have all the answers for his case. I'm on the third coroner. It becomes exhausting, but we formed a community that says, okay, when you're tired, here, let us help you.
She says the goal is to keep pushing for change.
I have a granddaughter. If she gets pulled over and a siren goes off, I want to know that she's safe.
In October, victims' families asked for a national inquiry after 9 Indigenous people were killed in interactions with police over the course of 11 days in Canada. After Papigatuk's death, Nunavut MP Lori Itlout insisted the situation needs to change.
We need more de-escalation tactics and Indigenous-led crisis response teams.
Nunavut's police chief pledged to implement every recommendation from the 2 investigations into the shooting that killed Joshua Papigatuk. Paula Diane Perez, CBC News, Montreal.
Staying with this story, Nunavut's police chief has vowed to implement every recommendation from the final reports into the shooting. There are two ongoing investigations, one by the Provincial Police Service and one by the Police Watchdog. Nunavut's police chief spoke last week at a Kativik regional government meeting.
Criticism, when constructive, is an opportunity for growth and change. I assure you that we are listening and we are ready to adapt to serve this community better.
Makivik and the Kativik regional government are also forming a new Nunavut Public Security Committee. It will work on new strategies for Nunavut's police's services.
This is a proposed corridor for multiple pipeline projects.
You're crossing our territory on two ends of your pipeline. Who gave you permission?
Pipelines break of the pipelines would destroy water and everything in it.
They got to come through us first.
Is this an immediate evacuation order for all Coastal GasLink employees? I feel like we are at war. It's just all been building up to this point.
Yenta on The Passionate Eye. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Release him.
Why?
Well, I would say it's extremely bad form to arrest your new boss.
This man is actually in my custody.
What did he do?
Well,
Did you hear that? I'm being charged with,
This ranch isn't going down. Not on my watch.
If the car comes with the deal, I'm in.
Cheers, dragons!
I look forward to fighting you on many a deal.
And we look forward to beating you.
Dragon's Den. Watch free on CBC Gem.
In Manitoba, the search for the remains of two women murdered by a convicted serial killer is now officially underway at a landfill just outside Winnipeg. It started this morning with family members and Manitoba's premier on site. The remains of Mercedes Myron and Morgan Harris are believed to be buried there. As the CBC's Josh Crabb reports, the search has already turned up some promising signs.
Packaging from dairy products and flyers marked with dates from May 2022 have been uncovered at Prairie Green Landfill. This is around the time the remains of 39-year-old Morgan Harris and 26-year-old Mercedes Myron ended up buried at the site. They are among 4 Indigenous women murdered by convicted serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky.
When we work together, we can move mountains. And today, we began stage 4 of the search of the Prairie Green Landfill.
At 10:01 Monday morning, 2 years after families found out their loved ones were in the landfill, the first load of material from a targeted search zone was hauled to a search facility at the site. It's being spread out and picked through by teams of searchers using rakes and their hands.
We are going to be able to identify items and potentially remains as we find them.
A day earlier, Premier Wab Kinew was part of a ceremony with the Harris and Myron families, and he was there again as the search got underway.
And it is an intense emotion that you feel standing on that site with those families.
Officials say the search is grueling work. 45 people, including relatives, community members, students, and anthropologists, make up 3 separate teams. Searchers wear personal protective equipment, and they switch off every hour, decontaminating each time. To start, they're searching 1 truckload per hour, with plans to ramp up to 2 as they become more efficient.
This stage is anticipated to continue till spring of 2025, and it includes searching through approximately 20,000 cubic meters of waste in hopes of finding the remains of Morgan and Mercedes.
If the women's remains aren't found, searchers may dig deeper or search the more than 18,000 tons of waste that's already been removed from above the targeted zone.
We can say with confidence that we have a chance for this search to succeed. So no matter what lies ahead, we can say that we tried and we made the effort for these families, which is very significant.
Both Winnipeg Police and the previous Progressive Conservative government decided not to search. Safety concerns due in part to asbestos were among the reasons. The Premier says asbestos has been encountered, but it was removed safely. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Coroners in the Northwest Territories can now quickly identify toxic drug-related deaths. That's thanks to a new machine in use by the Coroner Service. Officials call it a major step forward amid the drug crisis. Jocelyn Chappelle has the details.
It used to take around 6 weeks to get results from drug samples because most were sent to Edmonton for testing. Now a coroner can get those results back within 30 minutes.
If we can save one life, no amount of money that this machine costs, that's the most important thing, is to be able to look after the citizens here in the Northwest Territories. And I think by having this machine, it's going to allow us to do that.
The machine, called a Randox Multistat Analyzer, arrived in Yellowknife last month. Dr. Cami Candola is the Chief Public Health Officer for the Northwest Territories. She says contaminated drugs are on the rise and that the machine will help inform the public about potential risks.
We're starting to see the changes. We're starting to see the organization. We're starting to see the people come in. We're starting to see the opioid-related toxicity, stimulant-related toxic deaths as well. We want to get ahead of it. So we're doing our best to get prompt diagnosis, get prompt public health advisories. We've been going up and down.
Candola says the NWT is the only jurisdiction to be using the machine on a day-to-day basis. It can test for the presence of 29 different drugs in the human body.
It can tell you the amount as well. So this is this new type of technology is revolutionary, specifically for, and I'm talking about coroners who are practicing in northern, remote, isolated regions like Northwest Territories, or in northern regions of other provinces where they don't have access to the specialized labs. This is a point-of-care test that can make all the difference.
So far, in 2024, there have been 2 opioid-related deaths in the territory. Candola says that she is grateful for the relationship her office has with the coroner's office to help bring closure to families impacted by the toxic drug crisis. Jocelyn Chappelle, CBC News, Yellowknife.
In 1 week, the new president of Nunavut Incorporated will be decided. There are 4 candidates for the position, and they all squared off this weekend in a debate. The CBC's Carl Cardinal has more.
The 4 candidates sat on stage for 2 hours at the Innu High School answering questions from voters. The debate was live-streamed on social media and Unkavut TV. Former Nunavut President Kari Tongtuji participated by video conference from Ranking Inlet. She says one of her priorities is working on a better redistribution of royalties.
First thing I want to do is find out why they are not putting any money in for Nunavut. I am from Nunavut, and I have seen so many people in communities fundraising for concerts and dance competitions.
Arctic-based Jeremy Tonraluk says one of his priorities is to build closer relationships with people.
The first thing I want to do is to fix up the little things at Tungavik, to get them closer to other communities, to the people we're representing. Getting feedback from the people we're representing is very important to me. Also, like I said earlier, I will continue working on getting daycares.
Nicole Campan spoke about the importance of supporting elders and youth.
My priorities are elders, of course, so they can remain comfortably in their home communities because they are the holders of our traditional knowledge and wisdom. Another priority is empowering our youth because they are truly our future of Nunavut.
Andrew Nakashuk wants better relationship with the government.
During our community visits, I have noticed that Inuit are not being represented enough. The people that should be representing them, such as NTI and other Inuit organizations, are not communicating enough. That is what I want to really work on for Inuit.
The elected candidate will hold the office on a 4-year term. The election is on December 9. Carl Cardinal, CBC News, Iqaluit.
It's been 35 years since Audrey McLaughlin was elected leader of the federal New Democratic Party. She was the first female leader of any federal party in the House of Commons, and there have been just a handful since. The CBC's Cheryl Kawaja sat down with her today to hear her thoughts on her time in the House and today's political landscape.
I think politics was different then. There was a fairly collegial feeling in the House of Commons, and there was a sense that we could work together. It would be silly to say, oh, it was all lovely. Of course it wasn't all lovely. You know, there were ups and downs. There certainly was an overlay of sexism. I think there's no question of that. I made a real attempt when I was the leader to ensure that more women were elected. And we had a special policy on getting more women elected. Not everyone in the party liked it, that's for sure.
As we look ahead, what is to come? What is your analysis sort of the political landscape right now in Canada, the party that you once led?
Yeah. Well, I think it's very uncertain. I mean, for any political party right now, the international scene has become much more complex. Now, on many fronts, there are wars, serious international issues, and that requires a lot of coming together and working together. The election in the United States, who knows what's going to happen? We don't know, but it certainly occasions a feeling of economic insecurity. Hopefully that won't come to play, but it could. As far as the New Democratic Party goes, I think if we stick to our principles, if we stick to the things that really matter to Canadians, I think we'll continue to do well.
You represented the Yukon, and we've had MPs of every political stripe in the last 40 years. When you were there, you were party leader. We had Eric Nielsen, who was in cabinet before that. Were there any moments in your time in Ottawa where you really had, Yukon on the map? We haven't had a national leader or a cabinet minister in a long time now.
I think that we were a bit more on the map. I mean, I can't be too pretentious about it. Of course, Eric, was called Yukon Eric, and people knew him. My observation at the moment, and in many ways it was true then too, the North is not really considered seriously, I think, in a lot of areas. And I use the North broadly in remote areas in Canada and so on. The latest issue that I must say really incenses me is the way we have ignored the people in remote communities around the price of foods. I mean, it's unconscionable. And, people are talking about a GST holiday. Well, those folks don't have any holiday. Maybe we should be looking at them, but of course there aren't many votes there. In my view, part of the reason that many issues in the North get overlooked is there's just not very many votes.
What are you most proud of in your time as leader?
Well, I am proud that we stood up against going into the war in Iraq. I'm very proud of the fact that while I was in Parliament, I was able to facilitate the land claims going through. As a party, we really attempted to structurally, not just by dialogue and saying nice things, to get more women elected. Now, we're talking about more New Democratic women, of course, but I'm very proud of that we put in a system that facilitated that, and I like to think that has carried over in time. I hope that it was a contribution to the country.
An Innu community is taking inspiration from Nunavut and the Northwest Territories. The Innu midwifery program in Labrador has started up baby bundles for new and expecting mothers. The CBC's Heidi Adder has more.
It's been 8 years since the Nunavut government launched its newborn wellness kits, providing essential supplies to new and expecting parents. Now Innu and Labrador are taking inspiration.
The costs are very high of all these products in northern communities, and it's really important that people have the essentials to care well for their newborns.
Innu Nation's midwives are still in training, but are starting their own Innu-specific baby bundles. They applied to True North Aid and received funding for a pilot program in partnership with the Innu Round Table. They now have enough supplies for 50 baby bundles.
It was very exciting. Gisela ordered all of the items, and I guess we were all pretty antsy waiting for it. And when the shipment came, it was like all hands on deck from IRT, bringing all the boxes into here and then organizing them all, but it was all very exciting.
Yeah, I feel grateful for the bundles, and I think a lot of parents are gonna feel like that.
The midwives hope to have funding in the future to make it a permanent part of their program, something they could continue even after graduating.
I guess I would want new parents to know that there's always supports out there for you, that we're always going to be here and willing to answer your questions. While we might not know the answer, we're willing to be there with you and figure out that answer. And whether that's a baby comb or labor support, or one day maybe even helping them through their labor and delivery and being the primary care provider. But yeah, we're there for them whenever anything anybody needs.
The midwives dream of a freestanding birth center on the Innu reservation and funding for Innu doulas and Innu nurses in the future. Expecting parents throughout Nunavut can register for a newborn wellness kit at their first or second prenatal appointment. Heidi Adder, CBC News, Shahajit, Innu First Nation.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
Which insects are serially monogamous?
I'm just curious.
Can love help us live longer?
I feel alive!
Does heartbreak make music better?
I love this music.
Could AI compose the next masterpiece of our time?
Robot composers conducting robot music. OMG!
Do you really need to wait 30 minutes after eating before swimming? And why is something as big as time kept in something as small as a watch?
Whoa, that's heavy.
When you get curious, you get CBC.
This is CBC North on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Local news and weather on your connected TV or favorite device. CBC News North, streaming now.
You're going to be introduced to a new world. Stand back.
I think my dislike is warranted.
What was Amy calling it?
beef wars?
You don't tell me anything. You don't share your feelings, open up about your past.
It's not that simple, Amy.
Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.